Cameroon is a state that was governed survives with the German annexation of the territory on 12th of July 1884 with the signing of the Germano-Douala Treaty under of a modern state. And after the First World War, where the Germans were defeated, the state was split into two. A portion was given to France and a portion was given to British. This became known as the British Southern Cameroon and the French Cameroon. The British took their part and administered it under the policy of indirect rule under the dual mandate of British Tropical Africa, a policy instituted by Lord Lugar. And this policy gave room for multi-party politics. That is, the chiefs had the ability to rule their people with their customs and tradition and give supervisory authority their regular update as to how affairs were being run and tax were being paid. However, the respect of their culture, minimum monopoly, was guaranteed, whereas the French took their own part and administered it under the 1881 law, which became applicable in 1929. This law was repressive, as it was under the policy of direct rule. Under this law, freedom of expression was not given, and a new culture was being forced into the people, and that was the French culture of direct rule. This culture made the banning of Mbale, a prominent newspaper at the time, which was under the UPC, and the UPC suffered a series of blows as they were advocating for immediate independence and reunification of both territories. This, however, did not stop the moving train. By 1961, there was a coming together of these two different states, that is, the British Southern Cameroon and the French Cameroon, in what historians or political scientists caption it reunification of the territory. This was under the federal system of government. Within this system of government, British Southern Cameroon kept their culture, French Cameroon kept their culture, but under one canopy, which was the Federal Republic of Cameroon. By 1966, President Amadou Ahidjo, with a different vision and mission of the nation, saw that reunification was not in its full gear and decided to accelerate reunification. By this, he dissolved all political parties and formed one party that was known as the CNU. Under this, he introduced a law that was highly repressive, captioned by many communication experts and pundits as the worst law in the nation, which was the Djeukam Press Law. Under this, there was pre-publication censorship, that is, media organs, newspapers, before going for printing or publication, had to submit soft copies of their newspaper to SDOs, DOs, and governors, administrative authorities. They will have to read through the articles. After reading through the articles and approve the ones they deem it necessary, that was known as the Djeukam Press Law. If a paper is printed without proper verification or following the due process, the publisher is sanctioned according to the law. All this went through as cultures now was mixed, and political scientists defined the 1966 debacle as the beginning of a political crisis in the nation. In 1972, there was a period of referendum where President Ahidjo conducted a referendum, and that referendum scraped off the federal system and instituted a unitary system. This was still under a one-party system, the CNU. However, in 1982, that is 6th of November 1982, President Ahidjo handed the command baton to his constitutional successor, President Paul Biya, who took over the nation and continued with the one-party system of governance until 1990, where President Biya was forced, following advocacy from different political group, pressure group, and political party like that of the Social Democratic Front of Chairman Ni John Fundi. It forced Cameroon to reintroduce multi-party politics, and we are 31 years on after the reintroduction of multi-party politics. What balance sheet do we have as far as that is concerned? What can we make of multi-party politics within the chaotic nature of multi-party politics, as opposed to the 1966 period where we had just the one-party system? The nation was that developed with series of projects moving up and down with less noise from political parties. Was Ahidjo right or correct in scrapping up all the political parties and instituting the one-party system for one vision, one focus of the nation? 31 years on now, what can we put on the table in Cameroon to show that these are the good products of multi-party politics? This is House of Commons with me, Tah Mai Javis.
Since 1993, EUG is 3 schools: ESG, ISTA, ISA, 3 ultra-modern campuses with more than 40 specialties in BTS, HND, DCEP, professional bachelors and professional masters. More than 15,000 graduates and more than 115 million francs scholarships granted to students. Many national and international partnerships, and more is still to come. At EUG,
we train leaders since 1993.
You're welcome back from that program, from the break. If you are just joining us, you're watching House of Commons. We are with the arrival of some of our guests. But here in the studio, we have no other person than a prominent politician, someone who have been inside the political landscape and understood the deontology of how Cameroon politics is being conducted. He's been through the thin and the thick, and he's a senior researcher when it comes to African affairs, and not just African affairs, when it comes to Cameroon affairs, and understand the politics very well. He is the president of the Movement for Democracy and Interdependence, and also head several the civil society group, and ensure that things must be done the way they ought to be done. He is a no-nonsense man when it comes to discipline, and ensure that things must be done following the law and the constitution. When stipulated, it should be respected to its letter. I introduce to you my guest with whom we are going to start the program while we await the arrival of Dr. John Ako. Here in the studio, we have no other person than our guest, who is Djeukam Tchameni. Welcome, sir. A privilege to have you.
Thank you, Mr. Tah. I'm pleased to be here.
Happy Sunday to you, sir.
Same to you.
We want to appreciate your arrival. Despite your busy schedule, you still make out time to talk to us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
We are with the arrival of John Ako. I'll begin with you. You got the resume as to how we're going to start the program today.
Yes,
a lot of people watching us have a different connotation. I want us to start with the democracy, reintroduction of multi-party politics in Cameroon.
Yes, sir. Okay, I followed with a lot of interest your introduction to the program, and then I wanted to add just one little piece of information that will help us understand what the dubious attitude of the UN, the international community, and then Britain when it comes to Cameroonian affairs. Yeah. It's important to understand that in 1916, Cameroon was not the only German colony. You had Namibia, Tanganyika, and then Togoland. Tanganyika was given entirely to the British. Became Tanzania later, joining with Zanzibar. Namibia was handed over to South Africa entirely, and they had to fight a bitter war of liberation, but it was as one full unit. But for some reason, Togo and Cameroon were split into two, between the French and then the British. In Togo, the part that went into Ghana remained into Ghana. So what we know as Togo today was just the piece that was left over to France. And just even lately, that section that was put into Ghana had some unrest.
Yeah, they have a secessionist movement.
That's right. They have a secessionist movement. And then in the case of Cameroon, it was even more complicated, because what the British did is that they split the territory in two.
Two again.
Northern Cameroons and then southern Cameroons, putting S everywhere.
Yeah.
Then in 1961, it's very important to say that British organized some referendum that was absolutely unfair.
The beginning of the chaos.
That was the beginning of the total chaos, because not only did they have a separate referendum for northern and southern Cameroons, but the way the question were asked did not really give to the people the opportunity to exercise all the choices that they might have.
Yes, sir.
And then, and when you know what happened behind the scene, the back dealing between the British and the French, then you understand why we are in such a confused situation today and why everybody is quiet. Because to fix this thing that they purposefully messed up, because there was a clear deal between the British and the French. We take northern Cameroon, we give you southern Cameroon. That's what happened. And they handed over southern Cameroon bitterly, because the British were not happy by this tendency in southern Cameroon for the unification. They were absolutely not happy about it. And then they say, okay, we're going to punish southern Cameroons. We give you over to the French. We take northern Cameroons and we go put it into Nigeria. And then, so today we are living a very, very difficult situation. And it's important that we all understand why, when you go to the UN, you have no answer, because the UN failed the people of Cameroon as a whole. And then definitely those are northern and southern Cameroons, because if you go inside Nigeria too, you find out that the people of northern Cameroon have serious problems.
Yeah.
That's first of all the area in which you have Boko Haram.
The Boko Haram insurgency.
That's right, because there's so much poverty there.
Yeah.
And then there's even a question about the Nigerian citizenship.
Yeah.
Because the Constitution of Nigeria says that you are Nigerian if you are of parents that were Nigerian at the time of independence.
Yeah, at the time of independence.
But at the time of independence, they were not in Nigeria.
Yes.
And then they're not been
Nigeria had their independence on 1st of October 1960.
1960.
Whereas the British Southern Cameroon joined, the Northern Cameroon joined on 1st of October 1961. That's right. 1 year after.
Exactly.
Thus, following the Nigeria Constitution, they are not Nigerians.
They're not Nigerians. So you see, so this, I'm bringing all that issue up so that people open their mind and understand that this is a complex issue in which there is international complicity, and that when we now, the victims, because in the meantime, who is happening is not a British person that's dying in Northwest, Southwest, it's not the French, and definitely not the UN people. It is Cameroonian people that are dying, be them soldiers or amber boys. So we have to be very, very careful as we take on this problem.
But it's fair to say that if we look at your background, very few persons will be very frank to say what you're saying, based on the fact that many will expect those from the French expedition not to toe your line.
Well, the thing is, I have, I say, a unique background in the sense that part of my family was in what was called West Cameroon at the time, in Tiko, and then in Kumba. And then I spent a lot of my vacation there. Besides that, I had my education. I had French education. Then I went to the US. So I don't call myself Francophone or Anglophone. I just look at, and then plus reality, I am a Pan-Africanist, so I look at
things as it should be.
Yes, I look at it from above, really. Yes.
Now, cluing in from what you just said, that based on the Constitution of Nigeria, which states that you are considered a Nigerian if at the point when your father, yes, and when you were born of Nigerian parents,
that's right,
prior to 1960.
That's right, at the time of independence.
Yes.
Yes.
Then it means that the same problem we are experiencing in this north and southwest is being experienced in northern, former northern, northern Cameroon.
Yes, it is very. They have serious difficulties in those areas. It's simply that Nigeria is so big, you see, that they are like just a small glass of water in the sea.
Before we dive straight into the topic, you raised an important issue that the British and the French, the British had a complicity in solving this problem, and you propped the UN into it too, and you said the UN is guilty based on the way they handled the issue.
They mishandled the issue.
The way they mishandled the issue.
Based on this back deal that the French and the British, who are both members of the Security Council, had among themselves. So they got the UN into really not handling this matter
because
the way it should have
I
been
followed an investigation that Tah Mai Javis was technically removed on the way. He was on his way to look at the to solve the same problem, because Tah Mai Javis has said to amalgamate these two nations is like forcing a balloon inside water.
The thing is, indeed, you know, like I say, there was a lot of interest going on at the time, and then those interests were so powerful that indeed even the General Secretary of the UN himself might have a position, but he was coming from a country, I forgot his nationality.
He was coming from Congo. He was going to solve the Congo crisis.
Yes, I'm talking about his nationality.
Okay, his
himself.
nationality, yes.
He was from some European, Nordic European country there. But France and British, they were powerful players, you know, and then they really he couldn't handle the pressure.
Let's now come now to this issue of multi-party politics.
Yes.
We understand that from the British Southern Cameroon there was multi-party politics. That's why we had the KMTP, CPP, and all the political parties. Whereas in French Cameroon, it was purely a 1981 law which became applicable in 1929. And now in this multi-party politics, we are now back into reintroduction of multi-party politics.
Well, in fact, in 1948, UPC was created, and then a series of other political parties were created under French administration. Multipartism effectively existed in Cameroon until, in French dominated Cameroon all the way to 1966.
Because it was banned. UPC was banned
in 55.
In 55,
that's right.
And he went to Southern Cameroon and were operating,
yes.
And they were later banned in Southern Cameroon based on pressure from the French government asking that it should be banned.
Yes, UPC was banned, but other parties were allowed to operate.
How effective were they?
Well,
in terms of participating in elections.
At the time, if you follow the debate at the National Assembly, until Aijo successfully got what he called a plein pouvoir, there was some form of real debate happening, but really it was never the intention of the French administration to have true multipartism in Cameroon. It has never been the intention, and then that culture of lack of democracy has survived this administration that, in my view, is a neo-colonial administration. It's just the French people with black skin that are ruling us from 1960 till today.
Why do you say so? That is a neo-colonial administration, French people, black skin, that we know that. They said we had independence from 1961. Yeah. They said we are free, we are an autonomous state, and that we have sovereignty.
Oh, yes, indeed. But
you see, we are in the neo-colonial state.
We don't control our money. And then the mindset. Mr. Biya was trained in the school in France they called Administration d'Outre-mer. It's a school that trained the French people to go and rule French colonies. So this man that you have as a president is, in his mindset and in his training, a French envoy to come and then rule local population. That's the training that he has received. And indeed, later on, that school of École Nationale d'Administration d'Outre-mer is the one that created in most French-speaking country, École Nationale d'Administration de Magistrature, ENAM. And then when you go to ENAM, the program of training is basically the same as the one of that school that has now closed in France, because they open the various things.
It's like shifting the school from France to, Africa,
to Africa
and to Cameroon.
And then in Cameroon
continue
you have
with
ENAM.
The same mission and vision.
That's right. And then when you see a person that is trained in ENAM, particularly in administration, he behaves like a French colonial master. That's how they are trained. They are trained like that. They are trained to rule over local population.
How do they behave, French colonial masters? How do you identify? Because I see these people, they are advocating that we should have freedom, we should have development and
no. You see, when you go and meet a sous-prefet, how you call it in English?
SDO, senior divisional officer.
Yes, divisional officer.
Divisional officer.
That's the sous-prefet. This man doesn't. First of all, you recognize them. They are uppity. They're arrogant. They don't view themselves as the servant of the people, but the chef de terre. They are the master. They use terms that you would recognize. Like things like the population. Like when they talk about the population, it's with so much disdain.
It's not specific.
It's disdain. It's like these people. And then when they send them, when they go there, they don't. Their intention is to keep law and order. It's not to cooperate with you. They don't intend to discuss with you.
It's not to look at the benefits, the best interest of the people.
No. It's to exercise power over the people, and then that's it. So the role that you will ordinarily have of a civil servant, it becomes now a civil master. That's the training that they receive. That's why President Ossi has probably asked that school should be closed.
Yes.
And indeed, the school should be closed, but not only the school, because you can close the school and then take the same curriculum and then take it to another school. It is actually that curriculum that needs to be completely shifted.
So if ENAM is closed, what should be done then?
Well, you see, you can train public. I mean, there are many good universities that have programs in public administration. You don't have to have a specific school training colonial masters. Okay. Yes, you can train them in
Let's
university.
dive straight into the topic. You are the president of the Movement for Democracy and Interdependence.
Yes, sir.
How will you give a balance sheet of Cameroon's democracy from reintroduction of multi-party politics from 1990 to date, and in view of the current crisis we have in the Northwest and Southwest region? I
will give you a very bad mark. Really, when you look at what has happened in Cameroon from 1990 till today, we have had, I could say, two periods. One period that went on from 1990 indeed to 1992, October 1992, where forces of democracy and change made some strides, I would say, and made some gains. And now we enter a phase from 1993 till today where the government took back everything, where the powers of the president became even bigger, where democracy, simple things like the ability to hold a meeting has been taken away from both political party and civil society organization, to the point that yesterday, I think it was in Paris, Cameroonians were holding a political meeting in Paris. This is a shame that people have to leave the country to go in another country to hold a political meeting. We have not made any progress at all, and because in fact the system of Cameroon, the regime that we have here is fundamentally a totalitarian regime and never really intended to give democracy. In fact, everything is corrupted. You create political parties, but then you create so many of them. And, and then they are constantly manipulated. When you want to be serious, they put obstacle. But when they don't put obstacle, they try to corrupt you to get you to do things that you're not supposed to be doing. So the result is that today what we have is a political scene that is confused, political parties that are weak, disorganized, disunited, and I'm not optimistic about the future of democracy in this country.
Why do you say so?
Well, because if you look at the numbers, in 1992, there were both municipal election, legislative elections, and then a presidential election. Opposition parties, or parties other than the CPDM, had 92 parliamentarians on over 180. When you come today, the CPDM has almost all of them. I think they're 100 plus. If you look at the presidential election in 1992, Paul Biya gave himself 39% and then had to concede 36% to John Frundi. Today, Paul Biya has 71%, the second best 14%, the other people 5%, and so on, 3%. So you wonder, how is it possible that after 30 years of democracy, we are moving closer to the same result that we had before? I'm sure that if, at the rate is progressing, if Mr. Biya goes to the election in 2025, he probably end up with 90% of the vote. And then, so that's paradoxical, to be in a situation where as democracy move forward, it seems that we're returning back to the single party system. And then the question that we might want to ask is what is happening? Why are we going
I
like
was
that?
about to do a follow-up that why are all these things happening?
I think that there is 3 factors that are playing against democracy in Cameroon. The first factor is the government itself that really does not intend to lay the ground of rule of law and democracy in Cameroon. This system was put in place. The state of Cameroon was created by a decree of France, I think in 1957. And then it was a state that was built.
To the French Cameroon?
Yes, French Cameroon. The l'État du Cameroon was created by a decree of France. And it is that state that we have till today. And the way it was created, its nature was a state not to serve the people, but serve France and then other foreign interests. And we have not been able to change the nature of that state. That state pushed out the nationalists, banned UPC, and then put UPC and all the other nationalist group out of politics till today. And then they have ruled among themselves, with the addition in 1961 of KNDP and other groups from what was southern Cameroon, and then they maintain a sort of oligarchy that is multi-ethnic and bilingual, and that oligarchy may have squabble among themselves, but they are very astute when it comes to keeping themselves in power. So as long as you have that oligarchy, that goes and recruits in every ethnic group of Cameroon, and put them together, give them advantages.
The elite.
Yeah, they
Call
call
themselves
themselves the
class.
elite.
Yes.
That's right. But I call them an oligarchy because it's a minority group that rules. Because behind the concept of elite, there is a concept of superiority, of high quality. No, they don't take the best people to put in that group. They take usually the most dishonest. I mean, you see how they mismanage the public funds. It shows that it's not the best of the Cameroonians that are in the oligarchy. But that oligarchy does exist, and then they control the state. And then they've been controlling the state for the past 60 years. So they are one problem. They don't want democracy, and then they really are doing everything to keep themselves in power by any means necessary. The second source of a problem are the political parties themselves. A lot of political parties are, I would say, not serious in the way they conduct their affairs. They are first of all, they lack clear programs. They don't have defined ideologies. They do not train their militants. And they have strategies that don't make any sense because they are divisive at the time where they should be unifying. The only time that some progress was made was between 1990 and 1992, when all those parties came together within the coordination of political parties and association. And then they were able to get something from there. But right now, the parties, they hardly talk to each other.
They're fighting against each other.
They fight against each
Instead
other.
of fighting against the ruling party.
That's exactly right. So, so head of political parties are a gangrene. I mean, they are a cancer on the democracy in Cameroon.
From the way you are talking, it's like you are siding with those people, like my good friend Djeukam Tchameni, who is always a panelist here, to call these political parties now as an associations.
I didn't understand.
I said from the way you're sounding, like it's like they are no longer political parties; they are more of an association. From the way you're sounding.
Well, they claim to be political parties, but they fail to have good strategies to take the power, and as a result, they end up being a nuisance because they are divisive, and then they are prone to use ethnicity, tribalism to recruit members, and then because they are weak, they go after small areas. And then, so everybody kind of goes in this village and then try to say, no, it's our party. Let's, so most of those parties, they are ethnically, they're ethnically prone because they lack national programs. They lack resources, both intellectual and financial. So it's very, very difficult. I am not blaming all on them. I already said that the government did not put a dispensation that makes it easy. But I'm just saying that the head of political parties themselves do not help.
They're in the second category of persons.
That was the
problem.
problem.
The first category, now they are the second.
They're the second category. What is the failure is the failure to understand that as where we are right now, the priority should be to come together to fight for the change of the dispensation so that they can now play the role of political parties. But as long as they do not come together and work with civil society organization to change the political dispensation, but rather they fight against each other, they become a problem. The third group is the Cameroonian people themselves. That unfortunately, due probably to the fact that the government doesn't want democracy and that the political players are not playing a good role, Cameroonians have become disgruntled with politics, and they sort of, everybody like so busy taking care of his own affairs, his own life, just trying to struggle to survive, that Cameroonians are not as active in political affairs as they should be. Because democracy is not the monopoly of government and political parties. It is first and above all the rule of the people. So each Cameroonian should want to involve himself in politics, but that's not what you see today. Very few people are actually involved actively in social affairs, be it within a political party or in a civil society organization. And when they are, they do so too emotionally. They don't take the time to train themselves, because if you want to be a social actor, you have to take the time to get the proper training to do it. So you have on one side disinterested people, on the other side people that are involved but that are too emotional. So when you combine now people with a low level of political consciousness with divisive and head of political parties, and now a government that does not even want democracy in the first place, you understand why after 31 years we seem to have backpedaled. That is, we went backward rather than forward in terms of democracy.
So you talked about the fact that earlier on you mentioned the fact that President Biya gave himself a certain percentage in 1992, but we are made to understand that there was a body charged with the elections, and that there was a process that was followed, and people cast their ballot, and that body gave the objective result of the elections. Are you by one point stating that there were series of fouls?
I have to say this. Like in 1992, it is my conviction that John Freddy won the election. However, at the time the election were conducted by the Ministry of Territorial
Administration and Decentralization.
Yes, it wasn't called then. It wasn't called like that at the time. It was called Ministry of Territorial Administration. They're the one that conducted the elections, and they ultimately were the one that decided who won. And it was clear that the result was kind of close. But what I know is that when you look at the political landscape at the time, the Union for Change had successfully built a coalition that could give to the Union of Change around 40% of the vote. And because Mr. Bello had successfully taken the vote of the North, got around 10% to 12%. So Biya had about 37% left, and then Union for Change around 40%. We had done that calculation, and then the result was really, really close. Even the NDI, this branch of the Democratic Party in the US, really basically said that based on the information, John Fundi had won.
But that was not in conformity with what the law stated in Cameroon. That's why President Biya won.
Well, that's the thing. The thing is that, sometimes what is legal is not necessarily legitimate, though. Yeah.
That's a big one there. I want us to now look into this same system where we are talking about 31 years. We agree with other political scientists that there is a need to reduce the number of opposition parties that we have. That's the need to set in an electoral law which states that if you don't have a certain quota in an election, that party should be closed down. Like it is in Nigeria, where the INEC, there's a certain percentage you must have during election to prevent this, to reduce the number of political parties that exist in the country. Because now we have more than 200 and something political parties. If we divide them by the village, it means that each village has a political party.
Has its own political party, that's right. I, for one, would not advocate the killing of no political party. However, I feel that naturally those parties, they die down. If you look with time at the presidential elections as well as the municipal and legislative elections, you see that the number of parties participating effectively to those elections diminishes with time. It is dangerous to decree the death of a political party, because what that does is stops new parties from emerging. You see, and then it favors parties that were there first. And whereas those parties are showing that they are failing, and then there is a need for new parties. If you notice in 2018, that the parties that came second and third were fairly new political parties.
Yeah, we have the
older
MRC
ones,
party, and also
that's why the older ones are either John Biya or they just falling down like a SDF with 3%. So I think they should let people create the political party, but create a free and fair electoral system that will naturally eliminate political parties.
But there is a nuance there, because you said the reason why we are where we are is because of the fact that the political system has been so fragmented, and the government has played into the cultural and the ethnicity issue that has engulfed political parties. Thus, for these political parties to go in a free and fair elections in all the aspects, we will still have a system where, like the Ministry of Territorial Administration you cited in 1992, we have an upgraded version now in the different system. That's the LECAM and also the Constitutional Council. An upgraded version of that MINAT at the time. Now, how will free and fair election be conducted within this same dispensation? Let's say there is free and fair election. Like you said, what actually is right is not what is usually legitimate.
That's right.
How do we ensure this?
Well, I do not think that it is the number of political parties per se that creates the problem. I think that it is the inability of political parties to set clear agenda and then to have proper strategies. The main problem today in Cameroon is to change the political dispensation. It is not for political parties to go through election where they know that they're going to lose, because the system is set up in such a way. And then as every time there is a change, the regime makes it even harder and harder for parties other than the CPDM to win. So the fight should be, first let's come together and then fight for the change of dispensation. If we do not change the political dispensation, the nature of our state, nothing good will happen, whether we have 2 political parties or 1,000 of them.
You said from the balance sheet, you said there's no balance sheet as far as
very negative. Yes,
highly negative. You've been to different countries across the world, and you've seen different system works. And with the chaotic nature we have with the political system now, that's the political parties in Cameroon, how do we solve this chaos within the system where 200 plus political parties? It means that if a village goes by one political parties, we'll still have at least 5 political parties without a village, because we have plus 250. Well,
I observe in countries that have made strides that political actors show the understanding that the change of political dispensation was a priority. If I take the case of Burkina Faso that I know best, you saw over there associations, civil society groups and political parties coming together and now force out the president. Once they force the president out, they organize a political transition for 1 year where they review the constitution, review the laws and stuff like that, and now went on to have elections. We have to go, we cannot pass from dictatorship to democracy in this country without going through a transitional phase where we review the constitution, where we review the laws, the electoral code, even the penal code, civil code, we have the code of the family, everything has to be reviewed because the nature of our state is problematic. We have a state that was meant to be, that was built to be a dictatorship, a totalitarian dictatorship. And democracy is incompatible with the nature of the system. So it has to be broken into pieces and then sorted out again. All that this regime, as it goes, would do was to bring this country towards chaos. And then we see it happening already in Norway, Southwest. This regime is unable to solve that problem. It cannot solve it because the arrogant nature of the regime makes it impossible for them to even think that they can sit down and talk with the people. For them, I spoke to a high official. I will not name the person here, but I told him, why don't you speak to those that haven't taken up arms so as to marginalize the people that are taking up arms? He looked at me straight in the face and then told me, no, we have first to crush those that took up arms so that those people that haven't taken up arms will be reasonable in their demands. How can you imagine a government thinking like that about its own people? Why you want to crush people, or why you want to enter into a discussion with the person by first taking away the dignity and then the courage of that person? So it's that you don't want to talk. You just want to walk over people. And so it's a mindset. It's a colonial mindset that has to disappear. And then the way you disappear it is that you uproot the system and then you put in place, you go through transition and then you put a new system in place. You cannot hope within this particular system to have anything other than the chaos toward which we are moving.
You raised an issue about this same issue, this crisis, and when we look at democracy, it's seemingly like the fight for those parties that are advocating for much autonomy and freedom of elections is coming from West Cameroon. Like we look at the fight the SDF put and other political parties put, and those who are also championing this cause of democracy, and even the UPC that stood firm for immediate reunification and independent reunification is still in the dark because there's still that fight that's ongoing. Now, I want to be specific. In the Northwest and Southwest crisis that you mentioned about the top officials stating that it should be crushed, how do you think this can be resolved? A conflict in the Northwest and Southwest region, because these are the same persons who have lived a value of democracy from when they had the indirect role. They lived in Nigeria, the Eastern Regional Crisis, they walked away from the Eastern Regional House of Assembly, they came and had their own political parties, they had the West Cameroon Bar at the time, and now all these things are no longer there. And could this still be the fact that the war in the North and Southwest region is a war of democracy?
I am very saddened at what is happening, and then the suffering of the innocent people, the internally displaced people, and then those that did not even move, and then that are suffering the hardship of this war. My heart goes to them. It is a very unfortunate situation, and I find the government to be highly irresponsible to let this thing drag the way it is dragging. There are some issues that are raised, and then that have been raised not today. I mean, I remember in 1993, there was an all Anglophone conference,
ACC1 and ACC2.
ACC2. The problem that they raise are reasonable issues, and I don't understand why a government cannot sit down and then say, okay, group, I mean, it's almost like you're head of a family. And then you have one or two children that raise a problem. And then you say, I don't want to, I don't want to even talk about it. Now you say, no, you can, let's talk, let's see. And what is happening now, though, is because the political issues were not addressed properly, now we have a war. And the war has this, that it creates its own dynamism, its own dynamics.
Yeah.
And people start benefiting from the war, and they want the war to prolong itself. But you ask me a question, how do I see this?
The conflict in the Northwest and Southwest to be resolved.
I think that the political actors of Cameroon, all of them, be they those that advocate separation, those that advocate federalism, and those that are advocating more decentralization or more democracy, they have to find a way to get together to put pressure on this particular government. Because if this government is not put back against the wall, they will never address this problem properly, because they, in their mindset, they look at what is happening in Northwest Southwest like the war that happened between 55 and 1971. They say, oh, it can take 15 years. We're going to end up winning. That we know how to fight this type of war. We've done it before.
But between that period and now, is this the same dynamic in terms of fighting?
But that's what I am. That's the thing, is that, in those days, they could go in villages and then kill a whole bunch of people, and then nothing happened. Today, they can't do that anymore. So
they have not realized that.
I don't think that they have fully realized that they have their hand tied, because there is this guy that wrote a book, The Powerlessness of Power. You can have this much power, but yet you are not able to use it. So those, therefore, in the government that advocate for force, they should be very, very careful, because they may have all those things, but they will not be able to use it the way they think that they can use it. So the way out is definitely to shift this thing from a military point of view to a political point of view. And then in that regard, I personally contacted those of the Ambazonian that I know, and then told them that they themselves needed to shift and create a political leadership that shows that is able to control the armed groups, so that it be clear in the mind of everyone who are the armed groups that are fighting an ideological fight.
But they are divided.
That's the problem. That's a serious issue, that they are so divided. I told them, you are so divided, the armed groups are so divided, it's not clear anymore who are the bandits, the criminal, and then those that are fighting an ideological warfare. That a liberation movement has certain obligations. You have to have a unified political command, and then that unified political leadership, and then that political leadership must show to all the interlocutors that we have control over the military wing of our thing. And it is something that, on the side of the groups that are saying that they want to fight for separation, and then through armed wings, that's the part that they have to play. And then once they can have that political leadership My advice is they should stop stigmatizing those that do not necessarily want separation, and they may want something else, and then learn to work together. You can't force your ideology on nobody, because at the end of the day, this problem is going to be solved by a referendum. At the end of the day.
That's what you see.
I belong to a group that was formed in 2003 called Cameroonian for a New Referendum. We already said long time ago that there is no solution out of the Anglophone crisis but a referendum. We came together with a referendum, and then it's only through a referendum that we can either go apart or do whatever it is.
If that referendum is to be conducted, how will it be? The rest of the nation, the entire nation, or just the people of Northwest and South?
The thing is, you see, and then that's where problems start. When you say referendum, then can we go and then do a referendum only in the Northwest and Southwest, which is what most people would think, that there's a problem there, they should do the referendum only there, or should we do it for the entire nation and therefore dilute again a group that is minority into this thing, and then so that the voices are not heard? We in the Cameroonian for a New Referendum, we thought about that issue, and then we proposed that we avoid doing something in Northwest and Southwest alone, because by doing so, it means that we already split the country. But we should do it in the entire country. However, for a result to hold, 9 regions out of 10 have to be for it. 9 regions out of 10. And because there's plenty ways when people get together and they want to find a solution to a problem, they can find it. You can make a referendum, and then in which you don't count the voices globally, but you count the voices.
You give it percentages.
Yes, you
as
say
it's
okay.
Done in the U.S. election.
Yeah, you say okay. You say exactly.
This one has this number of delegates. If you win this, you have this number of delegates.
You carry it. That's
yes,
right.
you carry.
You carry it, and then by making sure that it is 9, it gives to the 2 Anglophone regions sort of veto.
Yes, it's sort of veto.
Yeah, if they say no, then it doesn't pass.
Yes.
That's right.
I think the 9. It means that if it's not 9, it means that if the 2 Anglophone regions vote against, it means that it doesn't hold. They go back to the table and renegotiate a possible way where you can have a uniform and understand an acceptable position.
That's right.
Which can be mutually beneficial on the different front.
Exactly right.
Now let's come back to the issue of the election. The Cameroon government will tell you that there have been series of strides made as far as the reintroduction of multi-party politics is concerned. Example, they will tell you that there is an introduction of freedom of speech and expression, that with the introduction of multi-party politics of democracy, people can speak freely, people have the right to associate, and that the press has the right to speak, though we still have a kind of post-publication censorship, which is now you have to submit copies of newspapers to administrative authorities as far as concerned in the 1996 press law, which we move from the pre-publication where you have to first go and give the soft copy as of 1966, now but to 1996 where you have to go and submit the already printed copy. They will tell you that there is freedom of speech, freedom of expression, people have the right to form political parties, association, and they will tell you that series of elections have been conducted, from 1992 election, other election 1996 where the SDF boycotted, and a lot. And they will tell you, Cameroonians live freely, that these are the balance sheet of reintroduction of multi-party politics as opposed to 1966 era. What do you have to make of that?
Well, what I can say about that is that this government has this unique ability to corrupt everything it touches. They will take freedom of expression and corrupt it into what I would call, let's use the expression in French, instead of liberté d'expression, you have liberté de bavardage. So liberté de bavardage and liberté d'expression is not the same thing. The freedom to
speak
of speech is one thing, but when you turn it into a farce, where all people can do is talk, but never lose every ability to turn that talk into political action, then you have taken away from the people the actual freedom of speech. Let me explain and then take by some example. Political parties can all go in the press and then talk all they want to talk, but they're not allowed to organize a political meeting. That's how they corrupt the freedom of speech. So they turn political leaders into comedians, and then every Sunday they're on TV, and then they talk, and then they talk again, and then they talk some more, but they are not able. Voilà, ils vont se fatiguer. Ça liberté de bavardage. They just talk, and then now the people have gotten used to being in front of TV, seeing 5 different political parties saying 5 different things, and then so it has become almost a joke. Freedom, and then the second example that I want to take, someone published on his Facebook account the letter addressed by the DO of Banga to the head of SDF in Banga, telling him, I heard that you are about to conduct operations within your party. I want you to give me the exact days and the places that you will visit. Can you imagine this? That a political party has to write to the DO and tell them exactly where they're going to go house by house to campaign for the reorganization. Can you believe it? But the DO wrote it because in the eyes of those people, democracy doesn't exist. You don't have the right to do things.
In the eyes of the DO?
Yeah, of the DO, the SDOs,
it's
the
for
governors,
public,
all of
for
them.
our audience to know, to have an understanding where you are referring.
Oh yeah, I'm referring to the state structure, this regime that we have. The members at key position, particularly those DOs, SDOs, governor, Ministry of Territorial Administration, their mindset is that they must control everything that you do. And the idea that political parties can function without telling them what they're doing is something that they can't even fathom. That's why you always see them moving in and then stopping meetings. Even in private places, they stop people from meeting. So you can't call this a democracy. It is not a democracy. It's a sham. It's a fake democracy, in fact, that we have in place in this country.
Thank you very much, sir. We are seemingly moving out to the first part of the program to move to part 2, though we have about 20 more minutes left. We have a series of messages where people have sent it, especially those watching us from Northwest and Southwest region and also Littoral Center region. This one says, the problem with your guest proposal for a referendum is that Southern Cameroon joined La Republique as a state, not as 2 regions. Any fair referendum can only come after the Southern Cameroon government is reconstituted and allowed to conduct its own referendum before joining the referendum. It's coming from Julius Chofo from United Kingdom. This other one reads, "Is a good afternoon. A lot of mushroom political parties are creation branches of the CPDM. If Elekam had powers, all these parties could have been shrinked to just 5 parties. Why? Because it will break tribalism at some scale, but it will help. The other parties are so selfish they cannot unite to break us out from the hands of CPDM." Is coming from someone in Bamenda, and there are lots of people watching us online who have given their own contribution, and I will take that in a couple of minutes or so. But first, I want us to have a conclusion to this topic before moving to the next topic, that's democracy and the role of the military in democracy in Africa. I'm sure you saw the second topic.
That's right.
Now, briefly, if you were to give an advice to the Elekam that coordinate elections? Because the MRC claimed they won the election. I'm sure you are a political mind. The dynamics differ as of what you saw in 1992. The 1992 picture was clear.
Yes.
And now in this 2018 is not that clear.
It is
not clear.
It is not. It is
not clear.
Nobody, no one, even Jesus Muhammad, came down today and then ran against Mr. Biya. They will lose. Nobody can win a presidential election with the electoral code that we have today. No one. Because I say this regime is extraordinary in its ability to corrupt everything. So they will give you something that looks so good, but the way it operates behind makes it impossible. Let's talk about the electoral code. Problem starts with people registering on the registering to vote. Elekam announced the other day that they have 7 million people that are on the list. And then this is more or less the numbers that we always had, around 6 million, 6.5 million. And year in and year out, at the elections, you have about 3.5 million people that bother to go and vote. And out of those 3.5 million, CPDM has a strong 2.5 million, you know, from civil servants to all sorts of people that they have down there. And then it is so well organized. And then plus, they even make sure, even if those 2.5 million didn't vote the way they wanted, they have so many places where they can change the result. You know, so in my view, it's the entire dispensation that need to be changed. That's, you know, so that I am for us getting all together and then changing entire dispensation, having a transitional period where we look into those texts seriously.
Okay. Those of you watching us on Facebook, Fondon Richard, Kwandan Cletus, Pepe Rich, Fonze, CP Anthem, Ivo, Mbu, JB Webster, Lawrence, Larry, we are getting your messages, and if you're watching us wherever you're watching us, the messages on Facebook, we want to get this one. It says comprehension is your key problem. If only you know what that means. And that's a reply to someone on Facebook. This one says Fano Richard says Nijon Fundi has openly said that he got even support from some military personnel but didn't want any bloodshed. He was the commander. People was waiting for his command, which never came. That is coming from the Richard. This one, Kwandin clear to say you got it wrong. How can you say that? Why should it be all Cameroonians participating in the referendum? This one says he just said it. You can't force your ideology on someone. I'm sure he was talking to people like you, Pepe Rich Fonze, replying. This other one says, Atem says, sir, you are on point. This other one which says, sir, may God bless you and protect you from the hands of the government. This other one read, it says, teach us, sir. It's coming from Louis Cape 2. Teach us, sir. Flexa says a good program. Roland Light is a very good program. This man is a very honest and frank person. May Yahweh protect you after this program. Hereafter, a lot of people have been writing on our Facebook page. We cannot take the message because of time constraint.
Okay.
I want us brief so that we'll dive straight to part 2. So we will have 10 minutes or so. What's your advice to first the 3 categories of persons that you state why we are in this mess of democracy in your word? That you said the government, the divided opposition party, and the people of Cameroon are responsible for the state of democracy in this nation.
Yes, we are all in it.
These are the 3 people responsible for the chaos that we have in Cameroon.
Yes,
the government, the divided nature of the opposition parties, and the people of Cameroon.
And the people themselves that are not engaging themselves hard.
Now, what is the advice on the government, briefly?
My advice to the government is that they have to understand the shifting nature of power and then cease and desist from thinking that because they have the monopoly of legal violence, that they can impose themselves on the people. A government is there to serve the people, not to command over the people. They have to shift that in their head, and then if they don't, they will be overthrown. It's just a matter of time, but that will happen. So that's my advice to the government.
Okay, your advice to the people?
To the people, I am urging the Cameroonian people to get more involved into politics and then to educate themselves. Politics is, you cannot get into politics like you get into, supporting a football team or
based
something.
On tribal lines.
Tribal lines and emotionalism. When you engage yourself, you have to train yourself to understand politics and what that means. So join an organization that provide training. And then we have set up also a website called ABC Democracy, where we provide to people tools of analysis. Because, in politics, you cannot understand politics without having the tools necessary to understand. So people need to get more involved, and then they need to train themselves.
The advice to opposition, which you said they have lack of
yes, I would advise those head of political parties that think that they are big thing to tell them the truth. They are nothing. There is no political party, MSA, PCRN, SDF, on their own, they cannot do anything. They have to not only get together, but also learn how to work with civil society organization. That is, we have to create a large coalition, and in that coalition, political parties must agree to take the back seat. If they look in other countries where people fought for the change of dispensation, is usually the associations that have the leadership for that period, and then once they have won and change the dispensation, then political parties step in and then go for free and fair elections.
Thank you very much. Now, I want us to move straight to our second topic. Our second topic, this one says, I like this man. He is good and honest. Grace to him. Is coming from someone in Kribi. He said, good afternoon, sir. Please, come on, don't practice democracy. Come on, don't practice democracy. I like this man. And I cannot take all the messages. That's just the truth. Democracy and the role of security forces in Africa.
Yes.
I want us to look at this. We've seen a different wave of opposition and different wave of military across the Africa now. Is a trend where the military seemingly is coming to step into democracy. What's the role of the military in stabilizing democracy in Africa? Well, you talked about the case of that we are experiencing with the chaotic nature.
That's the thing. This is paradoxical. That is, at the same time, the military are used to oppress the people, but at the same time, in some circumstances, it is the same military that can come and then help get rid of a bad regime. When you look in the history of Africa, you see that in many countries, some democratic stride had happened with the help of military coups done by patriotic officers. It happens. I, for one, am not for coup d'etat. I think that the people should organize themselves and then rise up. It's the preferred method. However, when you have a regime that has locked out all the venues and then, of popular expressions, what they're doing, they're setting themselves up whereby the only other organized force that exists is the army. And I'm afraid that if the thing continues as it is going on in Cameroon, that at one point the army will take the power in this country. Because the government is stopping political parties from becoming serious institutions by stopping them from manifesting, organizing, and so on and so forth. They're not even allowing civil society organizations to function properly. They corrupted everything, the press and everything, to the point that the only thing that is organized other than
the rest of the government now,
yes, is the army.
That's what you are seen as a senior researcher.
That's what I see today. That's why I've seen in most countries where you see the military stepping up, and then I am just warning that that's those same army
can be avoided.
That the government is sending to go and kill Cameroonians will turn against those government and then arrest them one day if they don't find a political solution to the problems that we're facing.
So you are issuing now like a seer from the political perspective.
Yes, it's my analysis.
Research that you have been to and the experience that you have lived across other nations.
Yes, sir.
Around the world.
Yes, sir. I'm saying that they have to be very, very careful, because I don't think that you can continue. You can suppress everything and not have the consequences of a military coup.
What role must security forces play in democracy?
In a normal democracy, setup, the army is there to defend the institutions and then the territorial integrity. That's it. They don't get involved into beating political leaders and then and then people that are you don't even see them normally. Because the police is there to help maintain regular order in the democracy. I think that they play a very important role for which they must be respected, and that's what they should do. The problem comes when we have a bad government that is using the military not against foreign enemies but against their own people. Okay. Then it becomes a problem.
Atiku, who stood for the presidential election in Nigeria, was not considered as a Nigerian based on the constitution. Your guess is right. Deep from Tiku. He's talking about the case you cited
of northern Cameroons.
Yes,
northern
Cameroons
yes.
That joined Nigeria. That he's stating that Atiku, who was the presidential candidate of the PDP, Popular Democratic Party, something like that, he was not recognized as a Nigerian based on that constitution.
That's right.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon. You are truthful, sir. Military have taken over democracy in Africa because the African countries are going to fall into water. This is coming from Kribi, and I cannot take some of your messages. This one written, even Jesus or Muhammad comes down against Bia, they will lose. Chai, this is coming from Sam Cooper. This other one says the referendum can't involve the whole nation because in one only Southern Cameroon voted to join that of what we have today. Is coming from Don Richard. I want you to we are almost out of time. I want you to throw more light on this referendum.
Referendum issue.
The people did not get the proposals you made,
that's
because
right.
You said the two states, if a referendum is to be conducted based on the group that you are a member of, that's a
Cameroonian for a new referendum.
That if it's to be conducted, the northwest and southwest, the northwest will be seen as a region, the southwest will be seen as a region, that both region will have veto. That is only 9. If 9 people vote, then it can be applicable. But if the two regions vote against it cannot be applicable. Maybe you throw more light on that for our
yes, sir.
viewers.
It's very important.
Especially the issue of veto.
That's right. One, there is a gentleman that intervened earlier, and then was saying, "Oh, we have first to have to reconstitute
the state
of Southern Cameroon before we do this."
Yes.
And then I always say to people, when you are in politics, you should never confuse your objective with your point of departure. You have a problem, you may have an objective, but you go from somewhere. The reality that we have today is that Cameroon is one country, is not two. There's no two government, there's no two currency, there's no two parliament, and so on and so forth. That's the reality of today. In as much as people may want to change it, and then I would love it to be changed, that's the point of departure. And we can really, so if we have to have a discussion as to, do we want to continue to live together? We cannot say that we don't ask everybody. It's fair to ask everyone. However, it is important, though, that doing this thing does not give to a group that is the majority the ability to impose its will on a minority group. That's why you have to introduce that notion of veto, without calling it by that name, but by saying 9 regions have to carry a decision for the decision to be implemented. You give an automatic veto in reality to the 2 regions. That is, in fact, what will happen can only happen if those regions also say yes to it. And that's what we thought. But of course, we're not imposing. We're not a government. We're just a group of Cameroonians sitting and thinking.
Proposal.
It's a proposal. If people can have a better one, we are more than open to consider them. But it will be very difficult in the current dispensation to be able to come and say, okay, we have one part of the country to vote. And then I ask to that person, okay, if we do that, what about somebody that's born in Bamenda that now live in Garwa? Will he be allowed to vote? What is going to happen? He's going to travel back to Bamenda to vote. You see, it's more complicated than people really want to think.
Okay, so if I get you correctly, the first thing is people should come together first. People
Yes,
should come together first and have a discussion.
that's right.
Then on that discussion, they can easily look for a possible avenue,
That's right.
and it's a process.
It is a process.
We cannot just say no. But let's first of all come together and say
together.
no on that table.
That's
and
right.
propose other options that
That's
can
right.
benefit all
All of us. That's right. That's
if
right.
I get you.
That's
Okay, so now what also, I'm happy you've clarified that, because a lot of people watching us on Facebook were kind of not
They're
getting it clearly.
tickled by that.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're tickled by that.
No,
And-
but definitely the voices of the Anglophone community must be heard, and then there's no decision that can be taken without doing that. Because in 1972, I was there. I was old enough in 1972. I was 11, and then I was a bright kid. I understood what was happening.
You were in 1972. I asked
Yes,
this
I was
question to Professor Elvis Ngolengole when I invited him for my program, and I asked him, is it true that the ballot in 1972 referendum was just yes and we, or there was we
No.
and yes, or yes and
No. Come on. There was yes and we, and then there was no and no. Yes, there was no and yeah.
But
But let me tell you one thing.
Yes.
I have to say this. The Anglophone elite of this country are extremely, they are just as dishonest as the Francophone elite. Let me just put it that way. They should be genuine and tell the truth to the new generation. In 1972, my uncle's house was almost burned because he was advocating for the no to the referendum. And all the civil servants, I say all of them, of West Cameroon, were advocating for yes. Do you know why? Because before 1972, there was 2 salary grade. One salary grade for West Cameroon that was indexed on Boya, and then another salary grade for East Cameroon that was indexed on Yaoundé. And clearly the niveau de vie in Yaoundé is kind of higher, so salaries of East Cameroon is a lot higher. And then unification meant that one salary grade, and then therefore doubling, sometimes tripling of salaries of some civil servants. Those people, they will kill you if you say that you are against unification. So I'm saying this, I'm just speaking the truth.
The reality, you lived it.
Yes, I lived it. There were some Anglophone elite that had a vested interest, and then they were winning right away. But the thing is that they were short. You see, because they were short-sighted, because they were selfish. Let me put it that way. And then saw things only short-term. But they did. To say that some Anglophone elite did not participate actively to the yes there is a lie.
Okay, so there was a yes and
there was yes and we,
there
and
was
then no and no.
But
yes.
in all the polling stations, you were there Or do we have the same ballot? Because some people are saying that only one ballot was present in most of the police stations.
I can speak to that. I was laughing. I didn't go all.
Okay, where were you at the time? Which area were you living at the time?
I had gone to Tico to visit my uncle.
In Tico, did you see the ballot no and none, or it was only
yes,
we and
yes? There was because there was a campaign leading to the stuff, and then there was clearly that people had the choice of voting or advocating first for the yes or for the no, and what happened though is that because the civil servants were almost all for we and yes, you know, of course I'm sure that they kind of twisted the thing in the favor of the yes.
Okay, so it means that based on
but
that,
the civil servants,
maybe the no and non ballot were not evenly distributed in some areas.
I am pretty sure that it was not evenly distributed.
We are slowly but out of time. I want to appreciate you for coming, sir. And before we take leave of you, I want us to get a clear picture as of those who are, looking at the fact that Cameroon's democracy is still premature, and you have given a picture that we are still at the infantry state and we still need much to be done. I've loved that you be part of our program for subsequently when we have to look at the change of name from the United Republic of Cameroon to la République du Cameroon.
That's right.
So that we see what went wrong.
Those are the type of unfortunate decisions that are made all along the way. I mean,
probably next week Sunday.
But that's arrogance. You see, that's the nature of this regime. Is arrogance, and then uselessly too, I mean.
Your advice to, we're out of time, your advice to the boys and men fighting in the northwest and southwest, and also to the military of the northwest and southwest region.
They should get out of the economy of war and not turn this conflict as a mean to enrich each other, because you have thugs on the side of the army and then in the side of the Amber Boys that have turned this thing into a business. And those that are leaders of the Ambazonian movement, I tell them, you have the right to say that you don't want to be part of Cameroon anymore. That's a fundamental human right. However, if you launch a movement, you have now the obligation to have a clear political leadership
and the respect of human rights,
and then arm wing that is under the control of that political leadership, and then you have to respect also that other people may have different views. That's all I can say.
Your advice to the military?
To the military, I will say to the military to remember that the Cameroonians in Northwest and Southwest are Cameroonians. They're not Boko Haram that are foreign troops coming inside the country. So they should exercise caution as they're fighting, and know it is painful as they see some of the comrades being killed. However, it is the nature of a military to die. But it is not in his mission to kill civilians indiscriminately. So I want them to really respect human rights, respect the rules of conflict, because such things exist, and then they must be respected. And let the politician, and urge the politicians to take that matter, into the political field.
Okay, I want to say thank you very much, Djeukam Tchameni.
Djeukam
Tchameni,
yes,
the president of the Cameroon, the movement for democracy and interdependence in Cameroon.
Yes.
You've been quite resourceful. We want to say again, hopefully whenever we have the time, we'll invite you, and whenever you are free, we'll be glad to have you.
It will be my pleasure to be here. Thank you. This
program will be rebroadcast today at exactly 10:30 p.m., tomorrow at exactly 9:30 p.m., and every Sunday at exactly 12 to 1:30 p.m. If you want to be a member of our program, you want to be a panelist, contact me on the numbers that was displayed earlier on the screen. And on our YouTube channel, you have a program. BT Media Group is our YouTube channel. BT Media Group, our YouTube channel. Subscribe, you can have all of our program. I leave you with this: no matter the matter, what matter is your matter. No matter the matter, what matter is your matter. And what should matter for you is that you shall know the truth, and only the truth shall set you free. You can kill the teller and not the truth. The truth will remain to haunt you. My name is Tah Mai Javis from Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. Fengu Jong, Bange, Kotobo Namusadi. Bye-bye.